Thank you for taking the time to join us for this masterclass. I've been really excited about preparing it, thinking a lot about what are some really useful things that I can give you in this time, in the next hour. You'll discover what it means to think like a leader, some ideas on that, the hidden superpower that great leaders use in conflict situations, and how to make conflict-free leadership second nature to you. This is for you if you're a manager, a team leader, or an aspiring leader. If you're committed to your own professional development and you want to do something different, do something new, and make some kind of transformation to the way that you've been leading already, and you are prepared to make changes to the way that you do things, and that you want to progress in your career or your business in practical ways. And progress might not necessarily mean getting a promotion, it may well, but it might just be that life becomes a lot easier for you, and that you do whatever you're doing, you do it even better. If you want less frustration and tension and conflict, being exhausted at the end of the day and worrying about how you can handle the next crisis, and misunderstanding relationships in your life, then this is the kind of program that you want. Imagine you have a magic wand and you could resolve conflicts without having to burn up inside, that you could remain calm when all around you are squabbling and causing all sorts of stress and tension, and imagine that you could have positive relationships with all of those people in your workplace, and that you could go home at the end of each day and have energy to relate well to your friends and your family. Then this is possible. So that's what we're going to focus on in this time. Gabriella is working the technology side of this masterclass today. Thank you to Gabriella. She will remind me from time to time when I forget something or stray from what we're meant to be talking about and doing. What I have on offer today is a free game plan call. And you think that a game plan call really is an opportunity. It's a 45-minute call, and it's an opportunity for you and me to have a conversation about what you're doing, what you see as some of the gaps, the difficulties that you've got, and to see what you really want to achieve as a leader of people, and to see whether there's any fit that we might be able to work together. You'll certainly get a lot from the call itself, and at the end of it, there's absolutely no obligation. The things that you get from that call, if you think you can do them for yourself and that you're quite happy to do that, you'll be able to do that. If you do want to join a program that we're starting up, then that's what we'll be able to talk about a bit further. But the calls themselves, 45 minutes, it's an investment of your time, but what the people that have done it so far have found is that it's a really valuable time to be able to explore for yourself, how are you functioning, what are you doing, and what do you need to do, what sort of changes could you make, even on your own, that will make a difference. So that's the game plan call. Gabby's going to put in the chat the link that you can make so that you can go and book a call should you want to do that. I'll talk a bit more about that at the end of the session. So a bit about me. I'm John. I grow managers and aspiring managers so that they can avoid burnout and stress and have more vitality and lead productive teams. I've worked with a lot of people over the last 25 years or so. I started out my career as a Catholic priest. I grew up in a family where there was fear of conflict. I'm one of 9 children. And so growing up, I've needed to confront my own reactions and how to grow and to learn a lot of these skills myself. I've trained and studied and written for the past 25 years or more, just specifically in this area of working in corporate. Prior to that, I had worked in alcohol and drug rehabilitation as a psychodramatist, and I'm really interested in helping others move from fear and uncertainty to courage and clarity. So there's me when I was a very handsome young man as a priest, and I've recorded my book that was in the recording studio, and I love tramping, or if there's people from North America, this is hiking, and that's my wife and I, we have done quite a few of these big tramps. But what I do believe and what really motivates me and is my philosophy is that you can manage tensions and conflict at work without draining your energy. This is what I believe is possible for everybody. And I'm interested in this for you. I think of somebody who was part of a program a number of years ago, Elle Taylor. She worked as a farm advisor, and she wrote to me about 10 years after she had finished the course and said that the skills that she learned in the program not only helped her at the time with farmers, but she had a 3-year-old child at the childcare centre, and there were some difficulties, and she needed to tread gently with those. And she just realized that what she had learned 10 years previously in the UP program stood her in great stead and allowed her to have those conversations. In this session today, what you'll discover is to rethink, reframe, and respond, thinking like a leader, handling the heat without burning yourself out, and the magic of shared learning, the strength in numbers, so that how you can make these practices really a part of your normal functioning. And how you'll benefit from this, well, you'll overcome some of these internal doubts and see the conflict and opportunities for growth. You'll respond effectively to angry or upset team members without exhausting yourself. And I think this is such a key that you can do this. It's quite a bit of learning, but it is possible to do that. And that you will feel less alone in your challenges and more energized to lead effectively. Because as you would know, when you become a leader, you've been part of a group, as if you've been a member of the team, and then you get promoted, then all of a sudden there's a lot of expectation on you. You don't have the same kind of collegiality. I mean, you still can relate well to your former team, but there is a lot that gets put on you as a leader. And so this becomes quite important. Having a peer group that you can share and learn with is very strong. So when we think of this first thing, how to change your thinking and boost your performance, well, great saying attributed to Henry Ford, at least he had this on the wall of his office apparently: if you think you can or you think you can't, you'll be right. And so this is the whole idea about what's your mindset. And Carol Dweck wrote this book. You may have read this, Mindset. In this, she talks about the idea of a fixed or a growth mindset. And a fixed mindset is, this is how I am, and a growth mindset is, this is how I am right now and I can change. It's interesting when you start looking at yourself and how much of a fixed mindset you might have in some areas of your life, and some other areas you may well have a growth mindset. But it's worth checking this out and understanding how that goes. So what you think basically is what you get, and it determines a lot about what you do, and a lot of it is unconscious as well. So making this idea of mindset conscious is a very important part of becoming a mindful leader. Now, I mentioned before that I worked for a number of years as the psychodramatist in a rehabilitation hospital in New Zealand. And the addicts and the alcoholics that I worked with, by and large, were stuck. They would say, I've always been like this. Some of them said, I was born an alcoholic, so I can never change. And while they were thinking that, they couldn't. As part of the psychodrama program, which is they could act out scenes from their life that determined and influenced very much or triggered their drinking and drugging, they could enact scenes in a new way, and they got to change their mindset to see that change was possible through acting it out in the safety of a therapy room and with other people who were accepting them. And then they made that change. And that's really something for everybody. Like, where do these internal doubts come from? And what I know from my work, not only with addicts and alcoholics, but with people even right through these last 25 years or so working in corporate, is that the childhood experiences are hugely influential on what happens to you and the kind of decisions you make about your life right now. While we don't do therapy in quite the same way in depth as I used to do in the hospital, nevertheless, these moments can be very healing when you understand something about your current functioning and how it is related to things in your past. But these things in your past have led to your beliefs and your self-talk. So that's part of what changing this mindset and realizing that you can change no matter how bad or how often or how stuck you feel, you can still change. And what your beliefs are and your self-talk affect your actions today and influence those. Overcoming those doubts it's about learning different ways to deal with these challenging behaviors. And that begins with your mindset. I had a lovely example of this with Lute Vute from Tonga. She said, I avoided angry customers and now I'm handling them really well, and it's helping me with my husband as well. She had always avoided them, thinking that they are too difficult to deal with. And once she changed her mindset about difficult people, that they weren't against her, they were just people that had difficulties themselves and they were expressing it this way, she was able to change the whole way that she related to them. This is really a fundamental thing for you as a leader. When in these moments where you get stuck with people, is how can you think differently about them? One of the big ideas that will help with this comes from a book called I'm Okay, You're Okay by Thomas Harris. He wrote this way back last century in the 1960s, towards the end of the 60s, and he first published it as a book called Life Choices, and it didn't sell very well at all. And then in the early 70s, he gave it to another publisher who said, let's make this a lot more sexy, give it a really funky title. And so the title is I'm Okay, You're Okay. Now, you don't even need to read the book, really. You just need to be able to think logically to work out what this might be about. There's 4 logical choices that you can have around this statement of I'm okay, you're okay. These are kind of existential questions. But for me, the learning about this was from an extraordinarily remarkable woman who was my trainer for 20 years. 20 years seems a long time. I'm a slow learner. This was Dr. Joan Chappell Matthias. She was a psychiatrist based in Christchurch. And I first met her when I was a priest, and she was running courses for people in the helping professions. She was also a psychodramatist and a psychodrama trainer. And she helped me become qualified as a psychodramatist. That was the first 10 years. The second 10 years, she was my supervisor and mentor, and become a trainer of psychodrama people myself. And this was when I finally qualified as a trainer, and I was presenting her with the flowers. But she had a very interesting story. She was at the admission ward in the big mental hospital in Christchurch, and she also worked in the prison. And she said when she works in the prison, she would always have this attitude of I'm okay, you're okay. So no matter what the prisoner or the psychiatric patient was going through at the time, as a person, they were okay. What they did wasn't okay. This is why they were having to be put in jail. They had to pay for their crimes, as it were, the appropriate punishment. The same with people who she might have needed to put into a padded cell because they were having severe psychotic episode. But she would say, as a person, you're a good person. You let us know when you're ready to do the work. And when she told me about this work, that had a huge impact on me, that I can have this attitude that I'm okay, and no matter what the other person does, they're okay as well. Now, this is kind of quite a big idea. But if you think about this, then what do I mean for the other three positions? So this is the first position. I'm okay, you're okay. Even if you're out of money or you've broken your leg and you don't feel very okay, nevertheless, you're still an okay person. That's the key idea. But the second position could be, I'm okay, you're not okay. And this is sort of a really tempting one when you're leading a team or you're trying to do your work and somebody is having a meltdown themselves, or they're saying things that you find difficult, or they are fighting with somebody else in the team, and that you just want to think that somehow, why don't people just behave themselves, and these people are acting like children. And then the kind of language that comes out of that when you think that they are not okay, as opposed to them, they're experiencing some distress and they're expressing it in an inappropriate way. But if you can hold on to this idea that they are still okay people, it can change your approach to them quite radically. Now, the third position in this, with these mindset beliefs, is I'm not okay, you're okay. And this doesn't have to be a lifelong position you hold. It could just be temporary. Something goes wrong, you feel that it's your fault. Maybe the people are telling you, or your manager might be telling you it's your fault, or somebody is telling you that you're wrong for doing this. But actually, you might be tempted to hold this picture that I'm not okay, you're okay. I can't do this, but you're much better at doing this than I am. And therefore, there's something wrong with me. This can also, you might want to check yourself in the mirror each morning when you look and say, what is your self-talk about yourself? Is it that I'm not okay? Oh my goodness me, look at me, my eyes are sagging, my hair's all a mess. I don't have to say that too often myself, but this could be just sort of a subtle position that you take sometimes about yourself. So it's worth checking to see what is your mindset about this. And then the fourth one is, I'm not okay, you're not okay. And that is, this is awful, life's terrible, and with the current state of the politics, the current state of the climate, whatever it is, everything's gone wrong, nobody's doing anything good anymore. And you could end up then with a lot of self-talk from this position that is not helpful for you as a leader. So just asking this question, why are mindset beliefs? Getting your right thinking. If you are impressed by what the Buddha says, what we think, we become. And if you prefer another wise person, for out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, is what Jesus reported to have said in the Gospel of Matthew. So it's kind of like what you think has a huge impact on how you act and behave. That's the first big idea that we're going to do here. So take a big breath in and a big breath out, as we're on to the next idea. And the two hot moments to manage, yours and the other person's, and how you manage those. Somebody who did the program a number of years ago was Greg West. He's a psychiatric nurse working in Marlborough. And he wrote to me about this because he was quite experienced as a nurse. And as you can imagine, they get a lot of difficulties with people, particularly having meltdowns themselves or challenging moments, both with patients and with their family members. And Greg had said that he's done a lot of training on relating to people and being able to manage them. But what he wrote is, this program is by far the best de-escalation course I've seen. Hopefully your workplace isn't necessarily the same as a psychiatric ward that Greg's been working in, but nevertheless, there are a lot of pretty crazy moments that happen in every workplace. And to be able to de-escalate those quickly and easily becomes a really good tool for a good leader. And so just what I'd like to touch on now is how much emotions play in that. You won't be ruled any longer by your strong feelings. You'll easily manage other people's emotions with that. And you'll get a lot more energy for doing things, because a lot of energy gets burned up in these moments, these difficult moments. Now, why this matters about understanding feelings is because that conflicts and tensions at work can easily derail the progress and get you onto the wrong track, where you're wanting to go in one direction and then all of a sudden things blow up. If you can't handle those and you can't deal with them, then you end up spending a lot of time on things that you don't really want to be spending time on. So this becomes absolutely crucial. It also matters because it can directly relate to profitability, or if you're not in the business of making money in your business, it can severely affect the effectiveness of your program. And furthermore, it matters because of the energy and enjoyment and the career that are at stake, that you can get burned out when you don't really have good skills about managing these hot moments. So these hot moments become quite significant in the day for using up much more energy than they need to, particularly if you don't have the skill. And so the reason why these moments become really hot moments is because of the feelings that are involved. And the thing about feelings is that people want to minimize or even ignore them. So instead of actually being able to handle feelings, they want to ignore them or disregard them at all. And this is kind of a popular approach to managing emotions and feelings at work. Let's just pretend that they're not there at all. And so let's just take a moment to think about what are some of the words that people say to minimize feelings. So let's just take a quick poll. If you could put the poll up and write, what are some of the words that people say that would either minimize or discourage any expression of feelings? And let's see what kind of words come up. Let's have a look. Okay. Let's not bring emotions into this. I'll deal with it later. I'm busy. This is how it's done. You're all right. It's not that bad. Can't do this. Won't work. Stick to the facts. You're okay. Then walk away without listening for the answer. Be rational. Calm down. Let's stay on topic. Take a step back. So those were some of the things. Some of the other words: take a chill pill. Why don't you just calm down? It's not that big a deal. And many other words. So there's a lot of words that discourage feelings. But the fact about feelings is that they are neither good nor bad. Now, there are feelings that you like and don't like, but all feelings are good because they tell you something about yourself, about your values. For a lot of people, this is a big shift to realize that these feelings are not bad. But of course, what happens is when people have feelings, they want to move away from them because they don't like them. And this is where, avoidant behavior can become in. Let's not talk about that. And making those disparaging statements to discourage feelings. It's also behavior that can follow from that. Eating more, drinking more. Emotional eating is big. Drinking, of course. Let's open another bottle of wine. Let's have fun, rather than talk about the feelings that are there. Going shopping, binge watching television, any number of ways of avoiding feelings. But because they tell you something about yourself, for really developing emotional intelligence, you want to get curious about your feelings. You want to lean into them and say, how interesting that in that moment I felt like that. You might not be able to do it in the moment. Sometimes if you're with somebody and you have a strong feeling, You haven't quite got the leisure to be exploring, I wonder what this feeling's about. But you can put it up on the shelf, and later on you can bring it down from the shelf and say, in that moment, how interesting that I felt like this or felt like that. And you want to name your feelings without criticism, without any judgment about yourself. If you've got a phrase, I shouldn't feel like this, then what I'd encourage you to do is just delete that phrase from your vocabulary. Rather than I shouldn't feel like this, just say, how interesting that I feel like this. Get curious about your feelings. Don't be afraid of them. There's a little phrase is to name them is to tame them. And so naming your own feelings becomes a really powerful tool that you've got, where you name them without criticism, but with curiosity and interest. So the same goes for other people's feelings. When other people have strong feelings, you want to be able to name them, to show them acceptance. It's I'm okay, you're okay. Even though you're having a meltdown, even though you're having these feelings that make me uncomfortable even, you're still an okay person. We managed to do it with toddlers. When a little child has a meltdown, you kind of know that their brain hasn't yet developed enough control over what they're feeling. They're overwhelmed by it all. And so if in that moment you're able to be a good parent, you can often hold them and say, gosh, you're really experiencing, something's happening at the moment. It doesn't always happen in the supermarket, of course, if the toddler has a tantrum there and you just want to get out of there and say, stop that. But when people grow up and become members of your team, or even for yourself for that matter, there are these moments as well where the feelings become overwhelming. And what they need is somebody to show acceptance of I'm okay, you're okay. Right at the moment, this is how you're feeling. Because the magic thing, and why this does become a secret weapon, is that when you name people's feelings for them without judgment or criticism, just showing acceptance, this helps them accept themselves for what they're feeling and realize, yes, that's what I am feeling. I didn't think I was even allowed to use that word, that I'm distressed or I'm anxious or I'm something. But you treat it as that they're not going to be anxious or they're not going to have this feeling that they don't like forever. It's going to pass. Then they will feel something else. And then later on, they'll feel happy, and then they'll feel whatever. So naming people's feelings becomes an important tool for you, particularly in that very first moment when people express some kind of distress or they're difficult, which you previously might have called them difficult, which is a not okay sort of thing. They're not difficult. They're undergoing some kind of challenging moment for themselves. I've been teaching this for a number of years, and I came across a book by Chris Voss called Never Split the Difference. He was a hostage negotiator for the FBI and did a lot of international, like heavy-duty negotiating, releasing groups of people. He calls this tactical empathy. And whenever he started a hostage negotiation, he would always make some expression like this, tactical empathy, to the hostage takers. And these people were desperate. They were often terrorists, whatever it was. He found a way of acknowledging what they were going through. Seems like you're in a pretty tight position now. You really believe strongly in what you're doing. By that way, was able to establish rapport with them and then have successful negotiations. So just think of that as tactical empathy. It's showing the person that you get them. It's not telling them, I can see that you're upset, so much as right now you're really upset. Right now, this is really difficult. It's as if you're standing next to them, feeling something of what they're feeling, and then you're able to say that out loud so that they actually hear it from you. A story that Kaz told me, she had been a manager for a number of years and basically got burnt out. She was quite a successful managing training organizations. And that what happened, that she just didn't have the skills to manage these things. And when she did this course, she said, as a business manager and team leader, I wish I'd come across your work sooner. You can keep struggling away on your own, but actually, sometimes you just need somebody to give you a few more tools to shift you on to the next phase, just like Karen.
John, we've got an interesting comment from Christina.
Can I say your example again about how you would use tactical empathy to that person if they're upset? Can I say it again? Is that it sounded valuable, but my brain needs to hear it again. So just being able to say, rather than I see that you are upset, just kind of feel what they're feeling. You are upset, aren't you? And so it's sort of a lot gentler than that. I see that you're upset. It sort of works sometimes, but it's not as sharp as it might be. Whereas this is not easy for you. This is hard, even for yourself. I guess I'm speaking pretty fast, and there's a lot to take in, isn't there, all of a sudden in this masterclass? It would be an example of that. Sometimes you just can get overwhelmed, and sometimes your brain just doesn't work so well, does it? That would be an example of that empathy. Yeah, there's an awful lot I could say about that. It's a good question, by the way. The other key thing around that in that moment is for you to breathe deeply and non-judgmental, labeling the other person's feelings, not labeling them. The trouble with you is you're over emotional, but just, you've got a lot of strong emotions right now, haven't you? All right. The third thing, the power of the group. There's no need to go alone. The whole idea of getting together, even in a group like this, where there's a group of managers, being in a group and realizing when you don't know things, there's a lot of shame involved. And why people are afraid to say even what they don't know is because it can generate shame. And this goes right back to early years, particularly schools generated the embarrassment, but shame is even deeper than embarrassment. And by being able to talk openly about your own need to learn and your own weaknesses and your own mistakes that you've made, that actually, by giving shame light of day, is one of the best ways of overcoming it. And so having others that can accept you and love you and think that you're okay despite those things. So that's what a group does. In a group learning, you also don't have to be the focus of attention, whereas if you have a one-on-one coaching, it's you for the whole period and you've got to keep coming up with things, whereas in a situation in a group, you can kind of sit back a little bit, hear what other people say. There's probably a few people who might have even had the same question that Christina had, and thank you for asking it because you've helped them as well. And then you get practical ideas and feedback from others with an ongoing group. And so the program that I will be offering will be a weekly group session. It overcomes terminal uniqueness. It was a lovely phrase that the addicts and alcoholics used to have, thinking that they're the only ones with their kind of problem. And in their case, for many of them, unfortunately, it was terminal for them when they held on to the fact that no one else was like me. But actually, everybody struggles with the same things. When you're with others and get together with others, you can spark ideas, and it allows you to put a lot of that theory into practice and see what others are doing. I came across this quote recently: the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it's the illusion of knowledge. And so that you can kind of think, I know enough and I can get by. But actually, when you're with a group and when you're in a learning situation, you can really know what you need to be finding out. Tessa was an example of this. She was a team leader and she was pretty good. But what she didn't realize, that she was not actually a good listener. And she found that out when she realized just how much of a rescuer she was. That completely changed the way she listened to people when she stopped doing that. And she became a better listener and got feedback, not only from her team, but also from her partner, who said, you've really changed now that you listen and don't try to fix the problems as soon as I start trying to talk about them. So just a quick summary. we've covered the growth mindset, how you can see people differently when you choose the I'm okay, you're okay position. Naming your emotions and theirs is a superpower of great leaders. And learning in a peer group helps practical application of theory and practice and expands the possibilities for you. So, is this too much information all at once? Well, maybe, but I hope that you get this one thing, and that is that you can learn to manage tensions and conflict at work. And you can do that without draining your energy. So this is really a key idea. And this is what I've spent these last 20 odd years teaching people this and really loving the results that I've been getting. And how can I make that happen? I've set aside a lot of time the next couple of weeks to offer you a free game plan call. That's me, by the way, with my book, feeling very proud of myself when it first got published. But anyway, this is how the free game plan call works. We'll do a 45-minute session over Zoom. And in that time, we'll explore your current situation, what's working, what's not, and what's the gap. And this will allow you to think about the way that you can manage tension and conflict for yourself. And it means that you get new insights into how you can move forward. And I'll be able to answer any questions that you might have about your unique situation and how you can apply those ideas. So at the end of our time together, you'll have at least 3 insights about how you can move forward into conflict-free leadership. I love that title, actually, because sometimes you get all this conflict for free when you're in a leadership position, as well as being free of it. But you can also get a new appreciation of your strengths and your challenges through this conversation, and this is one of the big benefits that people get from it. You'll get energy and encouragement to keep developing yourself as a leader, however you choose to do that. And others have said about this, it's been great. I'm glad I booked this call. Thanks for the conversation. It really did open up a lot more than I thought. And it's already been a valuable call. The call's given me things to think about. And that's what I hope they will do if you want to make one of these calls. And after the meeting, we'll decide if we're a good fit for each other, or will you go it alone or join the program. And it's entirely yours. And if you decide to go alone, I'm absolutely cool with that, because not everybody needs it. It's not the program for everybody. And you might just need that little bit of a push or a bit of a nudge from the call that you can get. And if you want to, we can have a follow-up chat about how I might be able to help. And if you just do decide to join the program, we can arrange an onboarding interview and make a detailed plan to proceed from there. But that's entirely over to you. And there are 2 reasons. You'll get your time back day and night. You won't hopefully be so worried, waking up in the night worrying about some of these things, but you'll start growing and managing conflict better with less drama and more energy for you. So those are the benefits that you'll get from that call. Are there any questions? Luciano, you've got a question.
Quickly, thank you for that again. Some learnings there, and also some things that I've learned before, but it's reiterated. My question is generational differences. Like, say, Gen Zers, who we actually have a lot in our company. Would you say there are differences in dealing with Gen Zers?
It's a great question. The answer, in a sense, is yes and no. There are certainly differences in the way people express themselves. But my original degree was in anthropology, and I used to look at the differences. I lived in Tonga, and I've delivered this program in Tonga, Samoa, and then lately in Bangladesh. What I've noticed is that the same dynamic happens with everybody. And what we've become more aware of recently, the science, neuroscience, understanding that the brain operates the same for everybody. And so that the same basic dynamic happens. It's just some of the expressions can be different for people of different generations. they need a little bit more. A lot of those people, for instance, are not so used to having direct conversations face to face with people. They're much more on devices. So there's a little bit of learning to be done there. But in terms of their fear of having that conversation, which is often what it is, or the anxiety that grows up, the younger generation's got high rates of anxiety. So you're dealing with that. But some of that is just naming it. When you can name it without any judgment, just saying, this is what you're feeling at the moment, isn't it? And they go, yeah, exactly. And then when they realize you get them, then you can have that conversation. Any other questions?
I'm looking at growth mindset, sort of advertising it. It's an option for people. What have you got any thoughts about that? How you sort of do an organisational growth mindset?
That's a good question from the point of view, how can you get people to change their mindset? And you might come across a lot of people who say, this is how we always are, lived in this town forever, and so this is how we do things. It really would be about opening up the conversation around growth mindset as opposed to fixed mindset, and encouraging people to think, what's the difference? What does it make? And that you can still be, if you like, a conservative small town, whatever it is that they value. What are the values that they are expressing, and how can they still have a growth mindset in that?
I think with sometimes it can come across as, well, you want me to change. I've been wrong all this time. And I think that's, some of those inspirational memes can feel a bit like that too. Change. What's wrong with me? Am I it's not me. It's, I'm okay. I'm not okay. And you're okay.
Yeah. That's right. You think I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And so that's the real challenge. And particularly when you look at that response and say, what's the feeling that's underneath that response? And when you can name that feeling and accept it, so sometimes this demand to change is difficult, isn't it? And you really value what you've built up over the years. And this feels a bit like a criticism, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So some of those kind of phrases, well, yes, it does feel like a criticism. Because it does feel like a criticism, even though it's not a criticism. Well, actually, maybe it is.
Well, yeah, but there's, exactly. Yeah, there's opportunity. Yeah, that's.
So let's explore that. And you could say the opportunity. So what's the opportunity that we could look at from this? Things like that. Yeah. Any other questions before we go?
Not a question, just like to say thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Great. What was it that for you, particularly, that you got from this session?
I think for me, because I've done the main tough course, but it was just that reminder. Time moves on and things change, and we've been through hell and back since we did the course. And so it was just a little bit of a reminder of those, not always what I need to do differently, but just a reminder that actually sometimes the stuff that we're already doing is the stuff we should be doing.
Yeah. That's great. It's why I always think this builds on, because the fact is that you're all still alive now. Nobody's killed you from being a terrible manager. So you're doing something right.
Been close.
Close. Yeah. More luck than anything, but still, whatever. But either way, you're doing it. Yeah. They're great. Nice. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, thank you to Gabriella as well for riding shotgun for me today. And thank you to you all for being here. And so please promote this. If you think that somebody will benefit from them, then please them up with us and they can get them onto the replay.